Okay, how's it going, everyone? It is currently recording this Wednesday, June 3rd. I know I said I probably wasn't going to do any YouTube videos until after I moved, but as you all probably are very well aware, there's a lot of stuff happening right now, and specifically, something very major happened in the city in which I lived, or live, sorry. And that is, of course, the murder, and yes, this is a murder of James Scurlock. Now, I want people to not misunderstand this. This is absolutely a murder. But the other thing I want to go over, or the big thing I want to go over today, is what happened. What were the events leading up to the murder? What were the events during the murder? Why this all took place? And why the police decided, or the district attorney decided not to press charges, and why that was the wrong decision. So, looking through, I need to get my. I made a Facebook post about it, so I'm going through and double checking that. It was, I believe it was Saturday, and it was pretty late in the evening. It was 11 or something at night, 11:30. Any rate, so as most cities have happened, there has been protests and even leading to riots in certain places, which is there's a lot of I have a lot of opinions on that, and I'm not going to get to those. But long story short, I don't condone the rioters. I think the rioters are trying to put out word out there that no one's been able to listen to before. So I think that they're just trying to get their message out. Anyway, so the murder of James Scurlock. What was the events that led to that? There is a bar, or a pair of bars that are next door to each other in downtown Omaha called The Hive and The Gatsby. They are co-owned by one Jake Gardner. Now, for those of you who don't know and aren't aware of the situation, Jake Gardner is a avowed white supremacist and has had multiple issues and multiple news cases against him in the past, where he has made very transphobic statements, have had very clearly told notions and saying, oh, what's the problem with any, even like not even listen out, what's the problem? Like, oh, I'm not even gonna let black people into my bar because I'm a fucking racist asshole. So, what happened that night? About a half hour before the incident in question, there were a few protesters and rioters who decided to break the glass on his bar. He was holding down a quote unquote military style fire watch, is what he was calling it. He is a former Marine, so that immediately to me shows an intent for harm. Most people I know or most businesses I know who had operations in this area decided that they were just going to leave. They weren't going to even bother protecting their business. A large number of them boarded up, and they just said, we're not going to worry about it. We're not even gonna go down there. We're gonna take ourselves and put ourselves in a safe situation and not be in this and not be near the potential, which I respect. I absolutely respect, and that absolutely is the right decision for anyone who's curious. So he decided to stay watch down there. Now, for anyone who's now he has a concealed carry permit and was carrying a 9mm firearm on him. The problem is his concealed carry permit had lapsed. So he was no longer legal. So now he's illegally carrying a concealed firearm. Regardless of any training he has, he is not supposed to have that weapon. And that's actually a felony if it were to be picked up. So there's a problem there, instantly. During the event in question, and it's very hard to tell because all of the official footage that was released is just being used from a security camera that was about 100 feet away, so you really, really can't get a decent idea. Someone was running along the sidewalk and pushed into a street. From that point in time, cell phone footage clarifies that then they started shouting N-word slurs towards some of these protesters. So when across the street decided, I've had enough of this, ran over and just pushed them down. I mean, obviously that's not a small thing, but pushed them down and said, this isn't okay. And when they turned around and they saw that, everyone then went down to confront that person. So there was about 4 or 5 people, including Gardner's father. At that point in time, the slurs increased tenfold. Gardner's father then went down and started shoving and attacking people, and it was very clear on cell phone footage that has not been admitted to the Douglas County attorney, nor has a large number of other footage and security footage from other businesses and all this other stuff. They're just using a single security camera that's about 100 feet away. Mind you, that you can barely make out the events that happened in one corner of the video. So, at this point in time, there is a verbal altercation, including a few people walking back and forth. Gardner attempts to leave the scene. People follow, and as people are following, his dad starts pushing and attacking them. So what do? They now feel threatened. They attack back. They, from what the looks of it appear to be, attempt to get into a fist fight. Now, this isn't illegal. There's not actually a problem with attempting to get into a fist fight. Is it and if anything, it's a high stress situation that it's gonna happen. They're not trying to damage property, and they were being attacked already. So, Gardner sees this as a direct threat to his life. That's what the Douglas County attorney or district attorney is claiming, or the Omaha DA is claiming. Now, when this happens, he decides to pull his firearm. And there's a couple of problems with this. Nebraska is missing two of three very important key laws. And the third one is not being expressed in the way that the district attorney is saying it is. First of all, there is no stand your ground. Meaning, if someone were to approach me, I don't have a legal right in Nebraska to stand my ground, pull a weapon if they're approaching me in a threatening manner. I don't have that right. So there is none of that there. I have to flee. I have to flee. There is no castle law, meaning if someone breaks into your house in Nebraska, you have to flee. If an attacker breaks into my house, say they break into my front door with intent to do harm, I have to either leave from the front door, the back door, a window, any way I can to remove myself of that situation. And that's actually a good thing. You shouldn't be forcing people into situations where they can legally use lethal force. What Nebraska does have is a self-defense law. The self-defense law, though, is very, 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 very clear. You can only use lethal force if someone is using lethal force upon you. You have to make a means of egress before anything else. So, meaning you have to attempt to escape. If you cannot attempt to escape, you can only use lethal force or you can only use force in an attempt to subdue, and not do lethal. Not lethally kill someone. And furthermore, on all three of those previous points, sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now. I just woke up and I haven't had any coffee. At any rate, beyond all three of those points, it has to be your absolute last option. As in, you have no other options, and your life or the life of your life has to be directly threatened, or someone else's life has to be directly threatened, which you are responsible for. So, obviously, that was not the case here. What happened is, going on with that, now that we know what the legal precedent in Nebraska is, Gardner pulls his firearm. This is illegal because you're not actually allowed to pull your firearm in a threatening manner to show, or even to show someone, hey, I have a gun on me. You shouldn't do this. That's an illegal move. Second of all, someone then tackles him because he's now making active threats, and so they tackle him in an attempt to leave. One person flees. Sorry, let me rephrase this. They don't tackle him. They're attempting to flee across the street, and the only means to get across the street is to go through Gardner at this point. There's a food truck and like a barricade in the way and stuff. So the only way to get across the street is through Gardner. Or maybe it was a trailer. Anyway, it's really hard to tell on the video because, of course, they use a shitty video. So, in an attempt to flee, they must go through Gardner. At this point in time, one person gets through them. Gardner grabs on with weapon in hand, mind you. At this point, he's already drawn his weapon and shown it off. Now, grabs onto him and falls to the ground with him. Shoots 2 shots. You're not allowed to shoot warning shots in Nebraska. You just can't. You can't use it as I'm intending to do this. That's actually illegal. Discharging a firearm within city limits is illegal. It's a misdemeanor, but it's illegal. So there's the very first misdemeanor charge that needs to be assessed right here. I don't know what the actual dollar charge to it. They don't say. I just unlawful discharge of firearm penalty, which means it's a misdemeanor. Anyway, so at this point, now we are considering an active shooter situation. That's the situation that is leading to all of this. And mind you, he was on the ground over someone once he was firing these warning shots. We don't know where these 2 warning shots went. There's been no report of, public report of where those went. There is a huge concern there because if those warning shots were to go into someone, this is now a aggravated assault case. But we don't know. There's just assuming that they went into some sort of building or car or something, which is obviously better than going into someone. But so he fires the 2 warning shots, and mind you, it was like, if this was the ground, like, and this is like where a standard person would sit on the ground, it would be like his hand would have been down here with the firearm, like very low to the ground. So, at this point, there's now an active shooter situation. Scurlock comes up behind him in an attempt to subdue the shooter. Now, I know this isn't what's actually recommended. However, a lot of people like to say, and I'm not going to say, who, but there's a lot of people that in active shooter situations tend to get super high and say, well, I can do this, I can subdue it. And I'm not saying that that's what Scurlock was trying to do. I'm not saying that at all. And in fact, I think he was thinking about the kids, because that's who Gardner was shooting at. It was a group of teenagers. I think his first thought was, there's kids here, we need to protect them. He jumps on Gardner's back and grabs his arm while he's on the ground, pulls him off of the person. Gardner then is able to maneuver himself free and fires 2 shots into Scurlock's neck. Make no mistake, that is murder. And Gardner is an active shooter. Now, what does all of this mean? So, as I said earlier, he has a concealed firearm, which has no permit. I believe it was registered, but he is illegally carrying a firearm. That is a felony offense. Granted, it's a felony offense that the DA has to apply charges on. Supposedly, after this happened, he called the police himself, told them what happened, and turned himself in. I don't know how true that is. I probably wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't believe that he would just discard his weapon. I do know that he claims it was self-defense. I do know that he claims it was some sort of act of protecting his business. But the fact of the matter is they weren't threatening his business. The windows on his bar were already broken. And there has been a number of eyewitnesses and cell phone footage that eyewitnesses were never able to give their testimonies to police. Cell phone footage was never admitted in the DA's decision, and so basically there's all this other stuff, and all the businesses and the other security cameras have not been admitted. Now this is highly unusual, but on Monday, there was a press conference because whenever you make an arrest, you have 48 hours to assess charges. Otherwise, you have to let the person go. They held him till Monday. All this happened Saturday night, and they had a press conference on Monday because this was a very big thing. And during the press conference, there was a lot of empty platitudes given of, oh, we feel so sorry, we feel so sorry, we feel so sorry. But then they decided not to press any charges, not a unlawful possession, not a illegally discharging a weapon, nothing. That's where the problem lies in here. Another black man was murdered by a white man, and our justice system refused to do anything. They refused to press charges, and it is a very clear violation of Nebraska law. So I don't know what to do. I do know that the more that this gets out, that the more people know about it, the more people know the correct events of what occurred and not what the press is, or the city is saying that occurred, which is what the press is going on about. The more likelihood that there probably will be a further investigation into this, and the more likelihood that this piece of shit, like, I'm not kidding, this guy's an absolute fucking racist. He has since fled Omaha, and from my understanding, and is going to California. And again, he's done multiple problematic things across his tenure in Omaha, to the point in time where a lot of people actually don't go down to his bars because he's the owner, or one of the co-owners. So yeah, we kind of see ourselves in the situation of what's going to happen, what's going to go on. So, do I have a response in word and what to do? I don't. I really don't. I wish I did, but I want to get this story out. I want to get the truth out. I want to let it be known what actually happened and not what the city is saying happened. Because the longer we sit down and just let the official story propagate, the worse this is overall. I want to see Gardner spend the rest of his life in a 6x8 cell. I feel that, if anything, justice was not served here. And I feel that, at the very minimum, beyond justice not being served, it was actively harmed. So, but that's basically what I've got for today. I am going to be putting, there is a GoFundMe for James Scurlock. I will be putting that link in the description. So if you have money, please, that's going to help them pay legal expenses. And then they're actually going to, from my understanding, let me double check this. It's legal expenses and other expenses. I know he left behind a daughter, help her out. I'm pulling it up to double check me. Withdrawal plan to get funds of beneficiary. James Scurlock Sr. has been set the sole beneficiary of this fund. Every single last penny of this fund will be given to James' family. So, it's up for them to donate. It's raised a ton of money, but, I mean, obviously they can still raise more. It's super, excuse me. It's super important. I would love for people to donate to this. Obviously, they're going to be using this for any number of things, but he did leave behind a number of siblings and a child. So, yeah. I will link that below. If you do have money, please donate to it. If not, please, even just sharing it would be a huge thing. So, all right. Well, with that being said, I will talk to all of you later. I hope everything else is going well with you. I know it's been stressful and everything, but again, yeah. So I hope you all have a wonderful week and things start to look up. I'll talk to you later. Bye.